So welcome everyone to the second lecture in the series Perspectives, an Introduction to the Arts and Social Sciences. I see familiar faces, so I'm not going to introduce the lecture series again, but here we are looking at art, learning new ways of approaching it, and I am absolutely delighted, I have been so for weeks now, to have Professor Goswamy here with us. Apart from being an erudite mind, he is an absolute joy to talk to, a person who always gives you something new to think about, something new to learn. And I am really, really happy that we have the opportunity to meet him and listen to him today. So what I will do is to go through a quick introduction of the more formal variety. I hope my voice doesn't give way, but also maybe tell you a couple of things about last year's lecture, because by now it feels like we have a bit of a shared history. So for the formal introduction, Professor B.N. Goswamy is a distinguished art historian. He is Professor Emeritus of Art History at Punjab University, Chandigarh. His work covers a wide range of subjects and is regarded as highly influential, especially in the area of Indian painting. He has been the recipient of many honors, including the Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship, the Rydberg Award for Outstanding Research in Art History, the Padma Shri in 1998, and the Padma Bhushan in 2008 from the President of India. Until recently, he also held the Tagore National Fellowship for Cultural Research. Professor Goswamy has taught as a visiting professor at several universities across the world and has also been responsible for major exhibitions of Indian art in Paris, San Francisco, Zurich, San Diego, New York, Frankfurt, and New Delhi. His two-volume study, Masters of Indian Painting, which he co-edited, served to introduce major exhibitions of the same name at the Museum Rydberg Zurich and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. He has published a variety of books as well as articles, too many to count. Over the last few years, books that you might want to have a look at, The Spirit of Indian Painting, Close Encounters with 101 Great Works, and one of the later volumes, Oxford Readings in Indian Art, published by Oxford University Press last year. So as I promised you, we met Professor B.N. Goswamy last year, and that's a memory that's not going to fade away anytime soon. And unlike this year, last year we were talking about miniature paintings and how to look at them. And we started off from the promise of talking about miniature paintings like a mirror in the hand. So not just looking at a painting, but literally how do you hold it, how do you approach it, how does it come to you, how has it been thought through. And one of the things that stayed with me quite apart from the lecture was the fact that after the lecture we had a number of students who went and did more research and found out about other miniature paintings. But we also had someone, one of your seniors called Nikhila, who went back to one of the miniature paintings we talked about in the lecture. And because we were told that a painting gives to you what you bring to it, what she decided to do is to write a little bit of a poem about this particular miniature painting as that which she wanted to bring to the painting. So what I want to do before handing over the microphone to Professor Goswamy is to welcome all of you and you with these couple of lines. The title of the poem is The Acceptance of Mortality, and it goes like this. Limping through the night, the old man is yet to give in to the dark. The fading of the light in his eyes, a sign of another start. Trotting through the green, aimless, he heads nowhere. Leaning against his staff, he is too lean to bear his death that does lead somewhere. His ricketed legs can't bear the weight of the world he carried so far. For too long, on his shoulders now hunched, for they have given up and hope to start to leave their burdens behind. I guess you recognize the painting. So welcome Professor Goswamy, and welcome all of you to the talk From Passion to Serenity, The Flavors of Art.
May I say how much of a pleasure it is for me to be here. Can you hear me at the back? Basically, I came here not to teach but to learn. Essentially to learn about how the young see, how the young work, and how the young get into a theme. I was waiting here for all of you to assemble, and I suddenly saw this particular book, which is not out yet, but I believe that a number of you were in Benares not long ago, and this work is produced as a result of a field work. And I was deeply impressed, very impressed indeed by that. And I'm hoping to receive a copy of that whenever it is ready. I've been promised one, and I hope promises made on the campus of this university are kept. I should warn you, friends of mine, well-meaning friends of mine, keep telling me that I have a gift for irrelevance. I will be irrelevant from time to time, but start making an effort, I will, to keep coming back to the theme which has been announced, that I'm going to be speaking on rasa. But that a little later. I was impressed by the spirit of curiosity which runs through this particular effort. Extraordinary. And I was reminded of my own childhood. I was a student in a municipal school in a small town in the Punjab called Gurdaspur. And the name of the school I remember, it is called the Hanuman Primary School. We used to sit on coir matting, right on the floor. And a teacher of ours used to give us some assignment, I don't know what assignment it was. And he used to keep walking between rows and reciting something to himself. And all of us thought he had gone out of his mind. Most students think that. Teachers have gone out of their minds. He was reciting something in Urdu. We didn't understand a word, but some words came as if they sat into my ears. And believe me, 40 years later, full 4 decades later, I opened a book of the poetry by Allama Iqbal. You know Iqbal, Sare Jahan se Acha Hindustan Hamara, right? And this particular poem had an excerpt. And I looked at it and I said, ये तो वही है जो हमारे मास्टर जी बोला करते थे. Yeah, this is exactly what it used to be. And I'll recite that for you because it catches the very essence of curiosity, which young minds like yours must not only entertain but cultivate. The Urdu is a little tough and translated. पालता है बीज को मट्टी की तारीकी में कौन, पालता है बीज को मट्टी की तारीकी में कौन, कौन दरियाओं की मौजों से उठाता है सिहाब, कौन लाया खींचकर पश्चिम से वादे साजगार, ये ज़मीं किसकी है, किसका है ये नूरे आफताब, और किसने भर दी मोतियों से खोशाए गंदुम की जेब, और मौसमों को किसने सिखलाई है ख़ुए इनक़लाब. 6 lines, each ending with a question. पालता है बीज को मट्टी की तारीकी में कौन? Who is feeding this tiny little seed which is sleeping in the dark depth of the soil? Who keeps on feeding it? कौन दरियाओं की मौजों से उठाता है सिहाब? Who is able to raise these great big clouds from the golden rivers that flow on my land? Kaun laya khinch kar pachchim se baade saazgar? Who brings this wonderful westerly wind in my direction? Ye zameen kiski hai? Who does the earth belong to? Kiska hai ye noor-e aftab? Where does the sun get its brilliance from? और किसने भर दी मोतियों से खोशाए गंदुम की जेब? You take a sheaf of corn, of wheat, and the poet says, who is it that like a jeweler has put one little seed and the second and the third in this little sitta? And मौसमों को किसने सिखलाई है खुए इनकलाब? Who tells us the seasons it's time for you to go, for the next one to come? Like that. 6 lines, wonderful utterance, 6 questions. Not necessarily there is an answer to each, but the essence of all this, of studying, of your inquiring, is this asking of questions. Not to let that spirit of curiosity which has brought you here to this university die at any stage of your lives. As I said, I keep on saying these relatively irrelevant things. But it's important for me, in a certain sense, to speak to the young. Those of you who have the fortune of studying here, and those of you who really are at the threshold of a career of sheer curiosity, sheer soaring, burning, singeing curiosity, because that is the essence of studentship. That having been said, let me try and go back to the theme that I chose for this particular afternoon. Rasa is one of the most fundamental concepts of Indian aesthetics. I'm sure all of you know the meaning of the word rasa. Ras can be at 3 different levels. At the most physical level, ras is essence, juice. You have ganne ka ras, you have orange juice or something like that. That is rasa, right? At a higher level or a different level, it is flavor, right? It is flavor. It is sentiment. But at the highest level, it is delight of the reason. It is delight at a level which nothing else can yield you. So, from the primary to the secondary to the tertiary, we're talking about an experience, not only the experience of tasting something and rolling on the bit of on your tongue, but the experience of getting something out of a work of art, which you cannot get from anywhere else, regardless of what art we're talking about, whether it is music or dance or theater, whether it is painting or sculpture or architecture. Rasa is what essentially, in the Indian way of thinking, it is all about. You and I use the word ras every day, right? Rasoi, that's where ras is born. Rasoda, I don't know what is the word that you use here and so on, right? When you go out of here, you will talk to each other and say, Kitna neeras tha lecture. How devoid it was of rasa, right? Rasa, what is the tongue called in Sanskrit or Hindi? Rasana, right? Like that. So the word is commonly used. I mean, you and I are not unfamiliar with the word, but as a part of an aesthetic theory, it is central, critical, Why do we make art? Why do we look at art? There are two words we use very often. Svantaha sukhai, for your own pleasure, right? You make art for your own pleasure, Svanta Sukhai. But the higher meaning of that, the higher connotation, where we really, in a certain sense, want to get into the field of rasa, is when we say it is Atmanam Sanskrute, for the cultivation of the mind. That is what art is for. You chisel your mind, you keep refining it. I'm sure you know the word Sanskrit, you know the word Prakrit, right? What does the word Sanskrit literally mean? Refined, polished. Ordinary people used to talk in Prakrit. When it is refined, when it is polished, it becomes Sanskrit. So the refinement of the mind, the polishing of the mind, the ability on the part of us, most of us or some of us, to see things, the layers of things which reside in a work of art is what it is all about. I'll share with you, before I get into the theory of rasa, a couple of personal experiences. Not many years ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago. That's many years for many of you. I was sitting in my home and passed in the street outside somebody advertising something or the other, and suddenly switched on to music. And what did I hear? Somebody whom I greatly admire and am passionately fond of was this great singer Kumar Gandharva. And what was he singing? He was singing a Tulsi Das bhajan. Aaj mujhe Raghuvar ki sudh aayi. I'm sure many of you have heard it. If not, I'd commend it to your favors. Kaushalya, the mother of Rama, is seated in her palace. Her son Ram has gone as an exile for 14 years into the forests or wherever. So has Sita, so has Lakshmana. And Kaushalya is singing, Aaj mujhe Raghuvar ki sudh aayi. Today I'm thinking of my son more than ever. And then Kumarji was singing with a passion, with almost you could hear tears in his voice, like that. I'm sitting here comfortably, she says, and where would my son be? It's raining outside. What is it that is giving him shelter? Siya bina meri suni rasoi, Lakshman bin Thakurai. Ram bina meri suni Ayodhya. Mahal udasi chai. And it is such passion, such sense of loss, such sorrow in his voice, Kumarji's voice. And I am a one-man dog. I can't hear anybody else except Kumarji. It so happens now. One of the greatest singers this country has ever produced. And I felt moved beyond belief. The hair, when you get experience of that kind, the English word is for that is horripilation, right? I have goose pimples or something like that. Sounds like a disease, a skin disease. The word in our own language is Roma Harsha. The hair on my body is happy, stands like that. Roma Harsha. And that is what I experience listening to that great bhajan by one of the greatest singers of our times. That experience that I was having was a rasa experience. when I was soaked, completely drenched, so to speak, not only in the words but in the emotion with which he sang, with which Tulsidas wrote. Second experience, and that is something which happens here in Ahmedabad. In the Sarabhai Foundation, with which I have had the privilege of being associated, there is a great collection of pichwais. You know what pichwais are, right? Pichwais are these great big temple hangings which belong to the shrine Nathadwara, where Krishna, of course, is celebrated, and a wonderful, extraordinary pichwais in the collection of the Sarabhai Foundation and the Calico Museum of Textile. If you have not been there, I would commend it to your favors. Right? It might be closed now, but run to the place whenever you can and see what pichwais can do. Now, in the pichwais are, great big hangings which Krishna is very often represented in the center. There are devotees on this side and that and so on. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. Now, one of the pichwais, one of the kind of category of pichwais, talks about or is concerned with ritus, with seasons, right? And in one of the seasons, Varsha Ritu, the pichwais do not have Krishna, right, in the center. There are sakhis, there are gopis, right, who come from either side. So you might have a tree in the center, right, and then 3 gopis from this side, 3 gopis from the other side, bringing in their hands platters full of offerings to Krishna. But Krishna is not there in that. No, the background is generally very dark, and there are little flowers here, there, and so on. In the background, you can almost smell the fragrance of the other flowers, so beautifully painted they are. I was leading a group of friends through the Pichwai galleries of the Calico Museum. And we sat in front of a Pichwai of Varsha Ritu. And suddenly I saw something else, which must have seen that particular Pichwai 20 times or 25 times, but I had never seen that detail. But I saw this time, suddenly, it's kind of a revelation, that there is the tree in the center, there are these gopis on the sides, the background is dark, and flowers are falling, right? Generally speaking, the flowers fill the background. In this particular case, around the trunk of the tree, flowers were falling in a certain order, right? And suddenly I could see that the painter had painted those in an order. If you joined the dots, you could see Krishna standing, legs crossed, one elbow sort of stretching out, must have been holding the flute or something like that, and so on, like that. I never seen that before. I'll show you that slide in a couple of minutes from now. And I was thrilled, excited. Maybe I'm an excitable person. It's entirely possible. I was very excited. How did this man think of this? Did he know that 150 years later or 200 years later, there'll be a small group of people discovering for themselves that he has painted the flowers in such a fashion that they can be read as Krishna standing? I was having, once again, an experience of a kind which nothing else can yield you. So 2 personal experiences, one from music, the second from a painting, told me what art is capable of, what it can do. It can transform you. It can course through your blood for the rest of your life. The theory of rasa as a theory, aesthetic theory, was first adumbrated in a great text, one of the greatest texts from India, called the Natya Shastra by Bharata. belonging to the date is uncertain, maybe from the 1st to the 4th century of our era, right? Bharat wrote the Natya Shastra. Natya is, of course, theatre, right? And it is all about theatre. But he says in the 6th chapter of the Natya Shastra, he talks about the rasa theory. He says there are 8 types of rasa. Rasa is one, but 8 branches of it, so to speak, like that. And he listed them: Shringar, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veer, Bhayanak, Bibhatsa, and Adbhut. 8 rasas. They feeling the sentiment of love, erotic, right? Like this one here. Or then the second one, Hasya, comic sentiment. Then, of course, the sentiment of empathy, sympathy with somebody, right? Of valor, of courage, of wonder, and 8 rasas, right? And then he goes into a long thing. He says, over a period of time, because theatre is not a 1.5 hour thing used to be, you could sit the whole night watching a piece of theatre in those days, and so on. So when the performance is taking place, right, and actors are on the stage, then you are watching everything. There are vibhavas, there are anubhavas, there are vabhichari bhavas, there are, and so on. A bhav is an emotion which emerges. And while you are watching, while you are looking, over a period of time, maybe an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and so on, your mind is churning. The mathan of the heart is taking place, right? And it is like you are bringing out butter from the curds. And suddenly a moment will come, the theory says. Suddenly. You are unprepared for it. Suddenly a moment will come when comes floating to the surface of the mind, a ball of butter as it were, right, and so on. And then that bhav that you have, the emotion that you have, converts itself into a rasa. Bhav is not the same thing as rasa. Rasa is experienced by you, by me, not by the maker, not by the performer. The rasa is exclusively your domain, your privilege to have. But you have to have the heart of a rasika, right? It's a very arrogant theory in a manner, elitist theory. If you are not a rasika, then it can be passed through to you like a berry through a bird, right? Unabsorbed or something like that. So you have to be a rasika. The other word used is adhikari, deserving of rasa, right? You have to be a pramatri who knows the measurement, how to measure things and so on, take a measure of things and so on. So rasika, pramatri, adhikari are the words which are used. If you are not one of these, you can watch a thing for hours, for your lifetime, and not this. But when that moment comes, then it is like chamatkar. Then it is like lightning descending from on high. And then the beautiful line, then he says, that the text says, then magical flowers will begin to bloom in your awareness. Adbhut Pushpani. That moment, when that particular experience of rasa, like I was telling you about my having heard Kumar Gandharv and so on, that moment the charge descends from on high and suffuses you completely through your body. That you will not forget. You may, in your lifetime, you can't be in front of a work of art each time. You cannot have a rasa experience. You may go through a lifetime without having a rasa experience, right? But when that happens, then your body, in a certain sense, is possessed by that particular moment. That is an experience. Essentially, therefore, rasa is an experience which you are entitled to have, which the maker of the image, the theatre performer, the musician is not having. He may be having as a listener of his own song and so on. But that is what makes it so extraordinary as a theory. Can I prove it? No, I can't. Can anybody prove it? No, I don't think anybody can. It's subjective. It is so very subjective. Now, I'm going to show you a number of slides. Incidentally, this is not the first slide I had originally intended to be on the screen. This is the second slide, but the first slide was of the Buddha, a clean, sort of a shaven head and so on. I thought you might wonder, what am I going to be talking about? A completely this. It's a great sculpture, great head. But I thought you might find it too dry, and maybe this is more attractive for all of you, right? Now, there can't be any doubt at all. What is the feeling you get? Peace, shanta, right? There are 8 rasas, Shangar, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veer, Bhayanak, and so on. A 9th one was added over a period of time called the shanta, peace. This, I don't think anybody could be in too much doubt. This is love, erotic, right? Attractive, very highly attractive sort of a sculpture, one of the Yakshi from Gurudas. This is obviously somebody smiling, a yaksha, right? So this could be categorized under the hasya category, right? This easily, this is Buddha's, the starving Buddha, the head, right? And obviously you empathize with this and so on, right? Or this wonder, this extraordinary image of Shiva Nataraja, who bangs the earth with his feet and 27 constellations spread in the sky. Or this Varaha, the great Varaha who saves the goddess earth, coming out of this Udagiri, coming out of the waters and so on and so forth. These are great works of art, and there's not too much effort which is to be needed to be made by you and I to realize that we are in this area. We may not have an experience in front of them, but this is roughly the area we are speaking of. But what can the artist do? A great painter, 18th century, Manaku by name, he painted this. It's called the Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg. In all cultures there are speculations about how did it all begin? How did creation come into being, right? And one of the theories is, one of the speculations is that one day descended from the heavens on high a great big golden egg, and it rested on the waters of eternity for time that you cannot calculate. And then one day, a crack in this opened. And then from that sprang out creation, right? Hiranyagarbha. Manaku, the painter, paints this in waters, right? And this is not so much golden, but now you look at this. The same painting, taken from a slightly different angle, and the gold glistens and shines and shimmers. Why is it golden? The text says, because the sun was hiding inside it, right? One of the theories. Why is it golden? It is the breath of the gods, the text say, the greatest of the greatest, the largest of the largest, among the largest, and so on, so on, extraordinary. But what I would like you to pay attention to is the water around it. How does he render water? There are many ways of rendering water. You can have running water, you can have waves in water, but he renders it like these walls, like concentric circles, roughly drawn and so on. Why? Why does he do that? My guess is, I don't know, I could be wrong. My guess is that he's talking about, how do you tell the age of a tree? You cut the trunk and you have these circles. He's produced these circles of time or timelessness on the surface of waters. And I think one of the greatest paintings in all of Indian art, and this man, Manaku, whom I'm talking about, must have had an intellect which is beyond yours and mine. He must have heard from his mentors what the Hiranyagarbha, what the golden egg is about. So this is what it is. Creativity. And if you and I enter into this particular work of art, right, with the kind of eyes or the mind that God has given us, we can make something of it. Sometimes we don't realize, sometimes you and I cannot get to the bottom of things, but let me just take a couple of minutes on this particular painting. The man seated at left, the bearded man, is one of the great Sufis, Sheikh Sadi, you must have heard the name, who wrote the famous Gulistan and also the Bhushan. The man next to him is a friend of his, perhaps a sheikh, a mullah, who suddenly has become ecstatic. We don't know what he's doing, and so on. Why are his hands up in the air? There are musicians here who are singing. One of them has really, like some of you, gone off to sleep, right? And so on, like that. And I was wondering what it is that the painter is showing. I turned the painting on its back and I found a kata, a 6 lines utterance by Sheikh Sadi himself, written in Persian. I'm sure all of you are Persian experts. If you are not, I'll translate the kata for you. The kata is a segment. Gili khushbu-e dar hamam rozi, rasid az daste mahbubi badastam. Badu gufta ke mushki ya abiri, ke manas bue dilaviz mastam. Bagufta man gili na cheez budam, valekin muddate bagul nishastam. Kamale ham nashi bar man asar kard, vagarna man hamu khakam ke hastam. Meaning what? One day, as I was about to enter the public bath, there were no private baths, right? Hammam. My beloved handed me a cake of soap. No soap. There used to be no soaps at that particular time, but fine clay, very fine clay with which you cleanse your body. And she handed this to me, and as I entered the hammam, and I suddenly felt so fragrant, so wonderfully fragrant. I put it to my nose and I couldn't believe the fragrance which is coming from that cake of clay. And I said to that cake of clay, I said, what are you? Are you amber? Are you musk that I am besotted with your fragrance? And the cake of clay, out of the goodness of its heart, spoke back to me and said, I am a humble piece of clay. But I remember that I come from the same soil in which roses used to grow. And it is the company that I kept which made me what I am. Otherwise, I am a fistful of dust, a simple piece of clay. Extraordinary utterance, right? You can say this, good company is good, right? But how the painter, how the poet renders this, I mean, इस तरह घुमा करके जैसे करते हैं, and suddenly it settles in your mind, settles in your heart. मगर ना मन हमू, खाकम के हस्तम. What am I? A fistful of dust. That's what I am. What am I saying? I go back to my original statement that I have a gift for irrelevance. It's not too irrelevant either. What I'm saying at this particular moment. Things can happen completely unexpectedly. Suddenly, out of the blue, I mean, you can listen to a piece of music, you can see a sculpture, you can see a painting, you can see a work of architecture, see a piece of theater, listen to some poetry. And इसको कहते हैं ना कि 14 तबक रोशन हो जाते हैं. I mean, in your mind sort of expands like that. This is the kind of pitchwise that I'm talking about. This is the ordinary, regular pitchwise. Brilliant. 3 gopis on this side and 3 on the other, a tree in the center, right? And there are, of course, the usual group of cows at the bottom. It's about as large, nearly as this entire screen. These are large hangings. So, another pitchwise, again, the same thing, background dark, flowers, right, in the background, like that. This is what the usual pitchwise is. But this is the pitchwise which I was talking about. The background is not all filled with flowers. Just around the trunk of the tree, flowers are falling in a particular fashion. You can get lost in other details. You can start admiring the peacocks in the crown. You can turn into a cow and start looking up towards Krishna if you like. But this is what it is. These flowers, which are falling in a particular fashion, made by the painter 200 odd years ago, are meant to be joined by you and I. Those feet, 1 foot raised, as you can see for yourselves. That is the magic of it. That is what makes things what they are. When I was talking about Aaj Mujhe Raghubar Ki Sudh Aayi from the Ramayana, Bharat and Shatrughan have been sent to try and bring back Rama. Kaushalya is seated up there, waiting for their return. Was their mission successful or was not? But when she sees them coming with heavy feet, right, she knows that they have failed to persuade Rama to return. And even the soldiers, the guards standing there can see that this mission has failed. And there she sits. And look at the intelligence of the painter. This is the other part of the thing. I'll go back to the original. Nearly 1/2 of the entire painting is reserved for this blank area, unpopulated, nobody there. Siya bina meri suni rasoi, Lachman bin Thakurai, Ram bina meri suni Ayodhya, Mahal udasi chai. A sense of desolation. descends upon you. I'm not recommending it that you should really throw up your hands in the air and like that mullah in the Sheikh Sadi picture and so on, start dancing like that. But comes close to it. Another painting from the Ramayana, the Cremation of Shirelles. These are not large paintings. I mean, I need to remind you, they are not larger than an A4 sheet. Small pictures, miniatures. Right? And just, I'll take you through this detail. The Cremation of Shirelles. This is what is called a viman when an old man dies, right? Like this, a celebration. Used to be a practice at one particular time that the entire population of the city or the village would shave their heads off in mourning. And you can start seeing now. Count, if you like to count the number of people, you might really have a difficult time. This is the Viman coming out of the palace, and this is outside. The entire population of Ayodhya is gathered. The saints are there, the sinners are there, the blind, the weak, the underlings, and so on and so forth. All moving like this. Ahead of them, the royal elephants, the royal flags are all there. And then, of course, there's the sandy bed of the river where the cremation is to take place. All in that one single painting. And then, when the princes have taken their bath, the pyre is burning, suddenly the only color in this particular part of the painting is of fire. Everyone else is without any color at all. And when the princes come, attendants stand, towels in their hands for them to dry themselves. One of the most moving paintings from this Ramayana series. The eye has to travel very, very slowly over the painting to be able to take in details of this kind. So this is karuna. This is empathy, like this. This is a world of enchantment, a world complete unto itself, a world that you and I cannot imagine existed outside of the mind of the painter. Same series, the Ramayana. The exiles have left, right? This is the complete painting. The little boat, Ganga is being crossed by Ram and Lakshman and Sita. There is no land that you can see from shore to shore. You can see that they are there, tiny little figures. Ram you can recognize from the blue complexion of his body. Sita, okay, but little detail of a boat. What do I see in it? I'll tell you what I see in it. In the Ramcharitmanas, it is said that when they crossed the river, then Rama said to the boatman, "What do I owe you? I used to be a prince, but I have nothing with me now. What can I pay you?" And the boatman folds his hand and says, "You don't owe me anything. I have only taken you across this particular river, but you are the one who is going to take us across the ocean of sorrow, which is this world." Professional courtesy. Why otherwise would a painter think of this? The heroes are just reduced to tiny little dots and so on, and there is this extraordinary expanse of endless water. The Ganga has been, stretched. Like that. I mean, painting after painting is filled with these extraordinary emotions, bhavas which will transmute themselves into a ras experience. If you are a rasika, if you are a pramatri, if you are an adhikari, then you will receive it. That moment has arrived for Ram, Lakshmana and Sita to get out of as an exile. And now look at the detail. They are passing through a street. Everyone stands up to greet them. They come into the palace. Dashrath cannot bear to look at that, and they are changing their clothes, wearing the bark clothing. Lakshman, Sita, Ram. Whispers are going on. What is happening to our prince? Was there no other way out of this? It is through these minor characters that the painter is doing this. I don't think there will be very many who will be unaffected by a picture like this. What are we looking at? I have about 5 or 7 minutes more. Gita Govind is one of the great texts of India, right? Written by Jayadev, 12th century. And it's about the love of Radha and Krishna. It's a kind of theatrical setting. But it's all about, love, separation, complaints, reconciliation, and so on and so forth. Extraordinary Sanskrit text. But begins like this, begins like a story. The poet says, the father of Krishna, Nanda, is out in the fields because he's a cowherd. So he takes the cows along with some companions. Krishna is there, Radha is there, other people are there. And suddenly the sky gets dark and thunderstorm is brewing. And Nanda says to Krishna, to Radha, this boy, he's younger than Radha is. This boy is going to get afraid because the skies are going to be filled with noise and this and lightning and so on. So take him home. And the poet says, as they were going back home, on the bank of the river Yamuna, their love began to unfold. There's the first moment when love, in a certain sense, is in the air. Look at how the painter renders it. Everything is dark, right? The background is dark, the brooding mystery of the Indian forest. The Ganga, the Yamuna is quietly, in the background playing. Only two figures are completely lit. Where is the light coming from? You and I can ask ourselves the question. There is no fire, there is no sun. Where is the light coming from? An inner light? Obviously. The moment is tender. Shringar is the rasa, right? He puts his arm around her shoulder, begins to fondle her. She tries to put his hand away, but not a convincing gesture, right? And their eyes are locked. The poet says, time came to a standstill at that particular moment. You can read the painting differently. In the far distance, if you notice, I'm showing you a detail. There are these trees. How does the painter see them? Towards the left, the trees are split at twin trunk. And as you move forward, they start becoming closer. This is a same painting, different exposure. Behind where Radha and Krishna are standing, there are two trees, one dark, the other light of bark. Krishna is dark like the cloud. She is fair like the lightning. And the two are embracing, the trees are. So this is what we mean. Vibhavas, anubhavas, gestures, settings and so on. And the churning of the heart is taking place as your eyes travel slowly over the painting. There can't be two questions about this. This is all the erotic sentiment. The heroine, Champavati, she is moving towards the garden, and the poet Billhana in the Chaur Panchashika says, as she moved towards the Lotus Pond, the bees and bumblebees were confused. Should they be hovering around her lotus face, or should be going to the lotuses in the pond? As simple as that, or as complicated as that. So you read works of art like this. The poet says, I now remember the moment I started lifting the veil from her body. And she looks away. He falls at her feet. There can't be any question about this. The context is that of love. And little details like this are meaningful. The knotted rope, the two bolsters. If I were to ask a person who does not know Indian painting, what is the moment? Is it before love making or after love making? You don't have to spend too much time on it. It is after love making, because the garland around his neck is broken. The necklace that she was wearing, the beads from that have fallen or are close to the feet of Krishna, like that. So you and I, in a certain sense, are being asked to be alert about it. Pick every tiny detail to start completing the picture in our minds. It's not a stitch of cloth on the lover's bodies here. It's all an evocation of the season of the rains, when love hangs in the air. All Shringar. All Shringar. Can you imagine the courage of the painter? 1/3, a little more than 1/3 of the painting is absolutely flat orange red. So from one thing to the other we keep moving. Everything has a meaning. She is the one who is Gyata Yauvana. She's a Nayaka, a young woman in love, who suddenly becomes aware of the arrival of youth in her body, that golden moment, right? The awareness, Gyata Yauvana. She's come out of the lotus pond in which she has had a bath. But just look at the lotuses at the bottom of the picture. Buds half open, fully blossomed. Right? From one stage to the second to the third. We are all in the area of the erotic sentiment, Shringar. And then we can move on to humor. Shiva and Parvati are on the Kailash. Vishnu comes visiting. Vishnu rides, his vehicle is the Garuda. And the Garuda and the serpent are enemies of each other. All that Shiva is wearing is a serpent around his loins. And the moment the Garuda arrives, the serpent says, I'll make way, fend for myself. He starts leaving the body of Shiva. And Parvati is embarrassed. She tears off a part of her sari and hands it over to, you have a visitor. You can't be seen completely naked, like that. Hasya, right? The snake says, I'll go. Yeah? You look after yourself. This Pandit who's performing some kind of a ritual at home is not very careful about what he's wearing. You can see that he's exposing himself, right? And the painter knows, what's going on. It's a hasya, like that. When Krishna steals the clothes of the gopis, right? And they all start coming out and begging him to return. He says, no, you fold your hands, come out like exactly as you are, right? Karuna. Radha seated, waiting for Krishna. She hears Radha towards the left. The Sakhi has spoken to Krishna up there. And Radha says, he's out of my hands. I will embrace the darkness of the night. Nothing else. Princess on a marble terrace. What you are looking at is 1/2 of an inch in real life. याद आवे जब पियू की विरह उठे तन जाग जूं चूने की कांकरी जब छिड़को तब आग. I think of my lover, and viraha, right, begins to burn me, so to speak. It is as if my heart is a lump of lime. The one drop of water on it begins to sizzle. Jab chirko, tab aag. Veera. Krishna killing the demon who comes in the form of a great big buffalo. Heroism, valor, right? Bhaya, bhayanak, fear, darkness, demons. I doubt if you'll like to meet them. You know, there's a kind of fear that they strike in your body. The goddess Kali from a Singhasan Batisi story. Image after image has, filled with this extraordinary understanding of what is happening. Sorry? Go back. What? Yeah, this is the goddess Jwalamukhi. I mean, wonders are piled upon wonders in this world that you and I are talking about. Bibhatsa, the goddess having killed Kali. I mean, one has to see to believe what the mind of the artist is doing. There she is. Chanda, Munda, Shumbha, Nishumbha, demon after demon having been, and she has killed demon after demon and made a kind of a loincloth around her limbs. And Adbhut, wondrous. Vatapatra Shahi, Markandeya having a darshan of Vishnu on a single leaf of the vata tree. The speaking tree in the Islamic tradition, where there is a tree filled with creatures of all kinds. There's no tree. It's all snakes intertwined. Wonder. The wonder of Krishna. What are we looking at? This particular thing. Is it a whirlwind, fire, storm? What are we looking at? And so on. And Shanta, quiet. In an ashram, two rishis, Medhas and Markandeya, in conversation. Somebody, South India, brought all 9 rasas together in this. If you start looking at this performance, these are performers, top called 3 vertical columns. Shringara, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veera, Bhayanaka, Bibhatsa, Adbhut, Shanta. 9 rasas in the performing arts. The dimension of imagination on the part of the painter. Krishna says, I'm not going to go back. He sends his friend Uddhava to tell the gopis, I'm not returning. My role in Gokula and Vrindavan is finished. And Uddhava has the difficult task of trying to explain to the gopis that the Lord is not going to return. And they are angry. Uddhav man nahi das bis, they say. We don't have 10 hearts or 20 hearts. We had 1 heart and he's taken it away. Right? Look at this. These are the gopis, and one of them says to Uddhav, come. Uddhav says, no, no, you should concentrate, you should meditate, this and so. And they say, what are you talking about? Uddhav koyal kujat kanan, tum humko upadesh karo ho, bhasma lagao anan. Right? That's what they say. One of them says, come, I'll show you his footprints. He left them here. And there they are. And one of them says, come, if you don't believe this, I'll show you something. And she says, come, I'll point out this. And shows him. You and I can explain your fine philosophy to us, but try and explain to that cow who's standing there waiting for the return of Krishna. What is she standing on, the cow? Mushroom, rock, cloud? You and I can't make up our minds. But that is the power of imagination on the part of the painter. This is a painting which I showed the last time. I don't have I have the time and you have the patience for me to go into this at any great length. But one of the most extraordinary paintings from the Jahangir period, one of the most extraordinary poems of our generation talks about this and so on like this. फिर एक दिन ऐसा आएगा, आंखों के दिए बुझ जाएंगे, हाथों के कमल कुमलाएंगे और बरगे जुबान से नुत्को सदा की हर तितली उड़ जाएगी. Death approaching. The lotuses of my hand will begin to grow as if they are wilting. The lamps of my eyes will grow dim. And the day will come. From the tongue, which is the branch of speech and articulation, all butterflies will fly away one by one by one. But then he says, लेकिन मैं यहाँ फिर आऊँगा, बच्चों के दहन से बोलूँगा, चिड़ियों के दुआ में गाऊँगा, और जब बीज उगेंगे धरती में और कोंपले अपनी उंगली से मट्टी की तहों को छेड़ेंगी, मैं पत्ती पत्ती कली कली फिर अपनी आंखें खोलूँगा और सरसब्ज हथेली पर लेकर शबनम के खतरे तोलूँगा. मैं रंगे हिना आहंगे गज़ल अंदाज़े सखुन बन जाऊँगा और रुखसारे उरू से नौ की तरह हर आंचल से छन जाऊँगा. जाड़ों की हवाएं दामन में जब फसले खिज़ां को लाएंगी, रह रो के जवां कदमों के तले सूखे हुए पत्तों से मेरे चलने की सदाएं आएंगी. I will be back here again, he says, rebirth. And then he says, तब सारा ज़माना देखेगा, हर किस्सा मेरा अफसाना है, हर आशिक है सरदार यहाँ, the poet says, हर माशूका सुल्ताना है. And then towards the very end of the poem he says, what am I? मैं एक लरसता कतरा हूँ, मसरूफ़ सफ़र जो रहता है, माजी की सुराही के दिल से मुस्तक़बल के पैमाने में. I am like, what is my life like? I am like a drop that trembles at the lip of the carafe of the past about to be poured into the goblet of the future. मैं सोता हूँ और जागता हूँ और जाग के फिर सो जाता हूँ. What is death like? What is rebirth like? And how does the painter render it? Like this. This man who can't stand on his own, there's no light in his eyes, trembling legs, but there is a flower growing close to his feet. which we didn't see to begin with. But it is there. It's a promise of return. That's all I had to share with you. May I thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Goswamy, and to all of you. I've got a million questions going round and round in my head. I presume you have some as well. Do you have 2 minutes just in case? No questions? All right. So this time, no questions. I hope we'll hear all about your questions on the group and tomorrow in class, because there's lots of things. As of now, thank you for each story pertaining to every single one of the pieces you have shown us. But thank you more than that for bringing all of them to us and for making available the beginnings of a language, a new language with which we are beginning to engage with all of this. It's about curiosity, which I think all of us have in spades, but it's also about having the words to make sense of it and to begin to take it forward. And for bringing that to us, thank you on our behalf. Thank you. I would also like to thank Samir and our entire CFP team for making all of this happen, to Dhruvika for arranging all the logistics and following up with everything, to our Duljibai and Rameshbai for making sure that we have where to sit, our video team and photo team and sound system people and everybody who has made sure that we can be here today comfortable listening to this beauty. Thank you, and thanks to all of you for coming and listening.